Recruiting in the Big 12 just changed forever. The entire precedent is reset, and it starts with BYU, but trickles to Arizona State, TCU, UCF. What do we do with this? This is a Locked On Big 12, Locked On Sun Devils crossover.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to a Locked On Big 12, Locked On Sun Devils crossover. I'm Jake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. There's Richie Bradshaw of Locked On Sun Devils talking all things Sun Devils. Thanks for making our two shows your first listen every single day. And you're going, wait a second. The biggest news in the Big 12 on Locked On Big 12 is a 5-star quarterback coming to our conference. Another 5-star quarterback is coming into our conference. That's exactly why Richie Bradshaw is here. The perspective that really matters to me is I love you, Jake Hatch. Less Jake Hatch and less Jerem Jordan, who, again, I love, and more everybody else, because the fear of God might finally be struck in those who now know the letters B, Y, and U. That's exactly where we'll start. Then we'll go Arizona State, taking the biggest risk possible post-House settlement. You're going, okay, what does that mean? They're going to give millions and millions of dollars to baseball and softball as opposed to what they could do in full for football. We'll break down that decision. And then the LDS faith. Not a ton of people in the Big 12. You ask a random TCU fan, hey, what do you think about BYU and their commitment to faith? Like, I kind of have no clue. Let's break down how it alters recruiting in the conference across the board, and it certainly has had an impact on schools like Arizona State. If you hit subscribe, we get to keep our jobs. Richie, from Houston to now BYU and even Arizona State, there is something in the water in Big 12 recruiting, and it doesn't start with Ryder Lyons. But this latest domino to fall makes everyone in the country perk up and go, oh, shoot, this conference is legit.
Yeah, oh, shoot, but a different word, right? They are absolutely cooking in the Big 12 right now because Houston got their kid, Keisean Henderson, right? I feel like I always get the last name wrong, but they got Keisean. What is it?
Yes, you're there.
Okay, perfect. Yep, they got him. Ryder Lyons is going to BYU, which is a huge get, especially because I know 24/7, which is where I usually go for my recruiting, had locked him down to USC for ever and ever and ever at this point. ASU's got a really good kid coming in with Jake Fette, and there's just a lot of really good quarterback play that's present now and present in the future. So for the other conferences that are looking down on the Big 12 conference, Drake, we've talked about this previously on the Big 12 squad, is name a conference that from top to bottom has better quarterback play going into 2025. We might have that same conversation in 2026 and in 2027 and in 2028. Like, there doesn't appear to be any signs that the quarterback play is going to be slowing down anytime soon. And some of the guys that are dominating right now, Sam Levitt and Sawyer Robertson, are redshirt sophomores, so they can still run this conference for a few more years, but they're absolutely loading up. But what BYU is doing in this cycle, because they already got their 4-star tight end as well, they're putting together something really, really special that is going to be able to help sustain the very, very great success that Kalani Sitake is having up in Provo right now.
It trickles down to me, or maybe it trickles up, right? When Arizona State wins, the Big 12 wins. I think when Arizona State wins on the recruiting trail now, and it's going to sound kind of weird, BYU also wins because the brand of the Big 12 is going to improve. And you may be a fan of a school in this conference and disagree with that, but I've seen a ton of Cougars fans say, hey, if we weren't in the Big 12, this would not have happened. If we weren't in the Big 12, we wouldn't have landed this recruit. And a piece of this to me, Richie, and this might sound very antithetical, is in the Pac-12, you're recruiting against USC that even when they suck, they're going to recruit well. They're going to get the biggest names. In the Big 12, it could be Arizona State. It could be TCU. It could be Houston. The battle for recruiting in this conference is wide open, and I think that's only helping the product. Am I wrong?
No, I think that's exactly what you got going on right now, because the Big 12 doesn't have that flagship school. It's the classic saying of like X school recruits itself. USC's brand recruits itself. Alabama, Ohio State, Florida State. Like, you don't need to be the best of the best to recruit itself. And Florida State, especially, they're coming off one of the worst seasons ever for a ranked team. and they've got a phenomenal recruiting class that is getting set up for the future. Like, there are some programs that really do recruit themselves based off of the prestige of their university, their past success, everything like that. So you look at the Big 12 conference, and there really isn't any program that stands out that way. Like, there's good programs over the last several years. Like, Utah has had a very good run in the last 5 to 6 years. Oklahoma State, prior to last season, was one of the best programs in the Big 12 for like 20 years. And Kansas State has been really good. And Texas Tech has the potential. And TCU went to a national championship not that long ago. But you don't have that brand power of a singular school. Instead, you have a conference that is collectively challenging each other to where anyone can win in any year. Like, ASU is returning basically their whole roster, but there's ties between them and Kansas State for winning the conference this year for our friends at FanDuel. Like, it's not an accident that continues to be the case, because you just have so much parity in this conference, and it's a very good thing, because now these kids will look and they can go, I can go here and I can compete. Like, not only can I get on the field, but I can potentially go to the college football playoff. Like, there is that path for these kids. So yeah, you may not be a flagship school, but you are getting into a conference where it's wide open. You can go to Houston or Kansas, who are coming off of miserable seasons, and end up getting in the bowl games the very next year. ASU picked 16th, finished first. That's pretty much the best example you can give.
Yeah. We'll wrap it up here, and then I do want to get more inclined directly toward Arizona State for a second. This was announced on Pat McAfee's show. AJ DeMonza was as well, the BYU. You're starting to see more and more of these Big 12 recruits back featured on national networks as they say, I'm going to play in the Big 12. That kind of exposure that's money. I mean, marketing, right? Being featured on ESPN is so that people would pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for their commercials. We got a free commercial as a conference on ESPN. Does it feel like the nation's starting to kind of take a look?
I would think that if they're not, that they are getting behind, because the Big 12 really is got so many very, very good quality programs. If you were to expand to the 16-team playoff, and if we just give it equal ground, no conference gets this many bids, whatever, or you know what, we'll do that. And Power 4 conferences run it, and everyone gets 4 teams in. The Big 12 last year would have been putting in Arizona State, Colorado, BYU, Iowa State. I know that Colorado got absolutely smacked by BYU in their bowl game, but those 4 teams were incredibly good football teams. And I'm not saying that they go on and win an excessive amount of playoff games or anything like that, but they are still able to hold their weight when they get to that point. And that's going to continue to be the case, but with different teams. So those 4 teams last year, you're not guaranteed to have those 4 this upcoming year. Maybe it is Texas Tech, Baylor, TCU, and Kansas State. Would not surprise anyone. Maybe Utah makes a comeback. Like, there's all sorts of terrific parity that's in the Big 12. And it's easy to hate that, right? That I've said before, coming from the Pac-12, everyone hated it. Oregon's going to be the team, and then all of a sudden they lose to Cal, and it's like, crap. Well, what do we do? How do we market one of these teams? You get to the Big 12, and it's like, oh, look at Arizona State, they're going to be great, and then boom, they lose to Houston, and it's like, what are we supposed to do? We can't market this, but it's a very, very good thing. And on a year-to-year basis, like, sure, again, to use that phrase, you don't have a flagship school, but if you enjoy college football the way you're supposed to enjoy college football, which is the form of parity and how anything can happen on any year, then the Big 12 is where you should be at.
Coming up, Arizona State's doing something insane, almost stupid. This is a Locked On Big 12, Locked On Sun Devils crossover. Today's song or show, either of them, Rugia. It's who it's brought to you by. Guys, you probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugia Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, their 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so stay confident and in control in the moment. If traditional options haven't worked, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. It's completely online as well. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege. Use promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. That's Rugiet. That's Richie Bradshaw of Locked On Sun Devils. Richie, they have made it clear in Tempe that in this era of the House settlement, where you can kind of just give football $20.5 million, and most schools are giving 75% of that to the gridiron, and then another 15% to basketball, and then another 5% to women's basketball specifically. Arizona State said, what if we gave, 35 scholarships for baseball? What if we invested in baseball and softball and what if we took millions of dollars that could go to football and gave them to Olympic sports or auxiliary non-revenue sports? Some would call it stupid. Some would call it crazy. What does Richie Bradshaw call it?
I say there's a reason that Arizona State is like the 50-year champion straight for number one in innovation, Drake Toll, because it is very much an unorthodox way to go about things. And honestly, it really caught me off guard the way that ASU handled this, because of the $20.5 million that every team is going to play with, you're allocating $2 million of that to all the scholarships that's going to baseball and softball. And that is going to look really weird to the rest of the country, because people love college baseball, but it is not college football. It is not college basketball. Those are your big money pools, right? And ASU football, when they're good, you got a lot of people in the Valley that want to go to those football games. When ASU basketball is good, it is what it is. That's why there's not as much money invested into it, but it doesn't mean that we're not willing to support it. When ASU baseball is good, it's an underrated love for the university, because I don't want to say they're blue blood, but they're kind of not that far off. They've got several World Series. If you want to look at all the Hall of Famers that are in Major League Baseball, and that doesn't even include Barry Bonds, for what it's worth, ASU has a very good track record of baseball, which makes me believe that that's one of the things they really want to turn around. And they've had, it's trending up-ish with where they're at right now, but I'm sure they're looking at this in a sense of like, hey, this was an identity for us. Why not try and get back to that?
So let's say that Kenny Dillingham walks in the room and says, Auburn just gave me an offer for $8 million a year to be their head coach, and they're going to give me the maximum amount of money that I can possibly grab from this House settlement and revenue sharing. Unless you do the same, I'm gone. Now, do I think he'd do that? No. Does he kind of have the right to do that as a Power 4 head coach that's going to be missing millions of dollars because it's going to a sport not his own? Unless you're just very generous and kind, you're now behind the punch of a Texas Tech, a BYU, a Baylor, a TCU, who've gone all in on football. And my question, if I'm Kenny Dillingham, to the entire athletic organization would be, what kind of money is baseball bringing in? And that's a hard answer, because they're not. They're costing you money. Now, do they give Hall of Famers? Do they give you MLB exposure? Do they give you a possible College World Series appearance on ESPN, which is marketing? Yes. But I can get so much more in marketing by going to the college football playoff, which Dillingham just did.
Oh, no, I agree with you. And that's, again, one of the reasons why it kind of shocked me, especially because you're coming off an 11-win season. You're coming off of a conference championship season. You're coming off of a playoff appearance where you're one win away from taking down the SEC runner-up blue blood Texas Longhorns.
Yeah.
You would assume that you're going to throw of $20.5 million on like 12 million, 15 million at it. Like, go all in on that identity. And again, because college football is the college sport, that's where all your revenue is going to come from. And that's where a lot of your investments should be going towards. And here's the other thing is, I do enjoy that ASU is looking at some of their previous successes with baseball, and they're not that far removed for it. They have had success since the turn of the century. It's not like we're talking about titles that came in the 80s kind of thing. But I also look at it and I go, who enjoys ASU baseball more? The older generations or the younger generations? Our generation, the new kids that are getting ready to go into college right now, Drake, there's not a lot of kids that are going to Arizona State University that are interested in watching the baseball team. And it's a shame. It really is. And I am a baseball fan. I know a lot of people don't really care for baseball because it's a slow game and this, that, and the other. But it's just an interesting choice to me that ASU is allocating a sizable chunk of their salary cap. You're talking about almost 5% of what you have going into baseball and softball. And again, there is history with both of those programs, not just the baseball. I know I've been talking about baseball. Softball has had a lot of success as well. But again, it's not your money drivers, which is really where this conversation is focused, is like, I can sit here till I'm blue in the face and tell you like, oh yeah, it's awesome, ASU baseball. But it's like, that's not really the point.
A piece of this to me is an optic. And the optic is, I am a fan of Arizona State. I graduated there 10 years ago. Let's say I'm just making up a fake person. And the second we're bad in football, I want to know. I demand answers on why you're giving more money to baseball and softball. And that's kind of what you're asking for here. The second you're bad, even this isn't just an Arizona State thing either. This is part of what the House settlement is doing to everyone. Mike Gundy just lost $1 million off of his yearly salary because they need to cut corners somewhere. And instead of cutting, baseball or softball, Arizona State's not going to do that. Oklahoma State said, we're going to kind of cut football by taking our head coach and taking $1 million away from him to give it back to football. We're going to give it to the players, which is crazy. Are fans going to be cool with this in the long run?
I just don't know, because like I said, it's such a hard sell because ASU baseball has been quality over the last 10 to 15 years. There's been some really crappy years and there's been some competitive years. But these kids go to Arizona State, these 16, 17, 18-year-old kids that aren't going to be in athletics. They're looking for the school. They're looking to stay home. They love the area. They're trying to get from the other side of the country and experience brand new life, whatever. There's a lot of stuff to draw these kids out here. There really is. Baseball is probably not at the top of that list, especially if you're not really interested in athletics. If you're going to Arizona State, not a sports fan, but you're going to go to the football games because of tailgating and all that stuff, baseball is probably the furthest thing from your mind compared to football, where you're still going to the games and like, oh, all of a sudden this team's really good. Maybe I should go to games more often. That's kind of the way that trickles in to help your revenue, is the people who may not be interested going to have a great time and then they enjoy it. That's a much harder sell for baseball. And again, like I said, I love baseball. The older generations who watched ASU baseball winning World Series titles and going to Omaha for deep runs, like, this younger generation hasn't experienced that. So there's a special place in the hearts for the previous generations, but these younger generations don't have that. And that's really where the focus should be right now, is for the younger generation that is going out a lot more than the older generations. It's just the way it is. Most of your older generations, and honestly, me included, I'm not in the older generation. I'd rather sit in an AC environment where my drinks are colder and cheaper than it is at a stadium. So interesting decision. You're going with a historical approach. I would love to see it. Drake, I see LSU winning the World Series 2 of the last 3 years. I get FOMO from that. But I can't speak on the behalf of other Sun Devil fans or even people who cover the team like I do.
Yeah. Coming up, the LDS faith. This is one that we don't talk about very often, but it is kind of becoming a pillar of the Big 12. This is the Locked On Big 12, Locked On Sun Devils crossover. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Why is it brought to you by Monarch Money? Because I'm 24 years old, and guess what I'm not very good at? Money. I go into my account, and it's all gone. But with my own personal CFO, giving me full visibility, my budgeting app Monarch Money is not just a place that I can go to learn about how to manage my money. It's a complete financial command center. You're not just managing money, you're building wealth. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and more with Monarch Money. The one surprising thing I noticed was how easy it is to track with a partner, a friend, with an accountability, anybody, with a parent, and make sure that I'm not spending as much on food delivery. And my financial goal for this year is to spend a lot less on food delivery. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Monarch Money. Richie Bradshaw of Locked On Sun Devils. So BYU just landed this quarterback, Ryder Lyons. And I know this is a prevalent thing in the state of Utah. It's prevalent amongst the state of Arizona as well. Phoenix is a huge hotbed for Arizona State, Arizona, and BYU fans, mostly because members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints reside predominantly, I should say, in that region, and Phoenix being a big piece of that. And Arizona State's had plenty of players. Arizona has, USC has, UCLA, BYU, and Utah, obviously, that are members of that faith. But our conference just landed one who said, hey, I'm arguably the best quarterback in this entire country and a 5-star, maybe the greatest player to ever go to BYU as far as a high school standpoint goes, and I'm not coming yet. I'm going on mission. And this is something I find, one, very admirable. Two, the most admirable risk you could take as an athlete to tell any school, at Oregon, a USC, hey, I'm going to leave. BYU obviously understands it. This is becoming much more prevalent in the Big 12. And I think that you're going to get a much more mature human being that comes out. And guess what? Probably wasn't going to play as a true freshman anyway. And now he's going to help the world. I think this is a really cool thing that doesn't get enough attention nationally.
Oh, I definitely do. I think that we as sports fans get so soaked up into the sports world and don't really look at anything else, the optics of things that are bigger than that. So for a high school kid, 5-star recruit, one of the top quarterbacks in the country, I think probably the highest rated recruit that BYU has landed out of high school since they started tracking stars and everything.
Pretty much, yes, yeah.
I mean, Drake, I think it's fair to say he's already a celebrity in Provo, and he's going to stick to the concrete floor establishment foundation of his faith and go on a mission. And we can call it all sorts of things. And I'll tell you, I call that admirable, because he is already the face of BYU football. He is already one of the players that BYU has been most excited about in any sport in any decade. I feel good about saying that for the 80-year-old people that have been watching BYU football. This is a very special landing spot, and BYU's beyond excited, and they're going to have to wait a year to see him. Are they going to be anxious? Yeah, absolutely. But bigger picture, this truly is special, and I don't know how many times we're going to see a player with as high a profile as Ryder Lyons do what he's doing.
Advantage. I'm going to use the word advantage. And here's how. Here's why. Work with me. In the Big Ten, in the SEC, they are very win now. We will fire you. You will be fired immediately. In the Big 12, you can have guys at Arizona to Cincinnati to wherever that get a couple of years with an extra leash. And you're like, oh, how on earth are they still here? It's because we don't have this new age, new world. Oh, we only care about money. This is about student athletes' development and growing a program. And every Big 12 school has pretty much displayed that to some degree in the last 10 years. If you're Oregon, you can't really afford an elite level player who takes a break for a year. You can't really afford to keep that relationship going, make that a thing. I think the Big 12, not just BYU, but Arizona State or Baylor or TCU would take a guy like Ryder Lyons and say, hey, we have more job security. We have more culture. We have more built up as a program. We don't have to fight or flight and say, nope, can't have you. You're taking a year off. We don't want that. I think the Big 12 is in a really good spot that when elite level talent from the LDS faith is available in the high school ranks, the Big 12 is a great stop for them.
Yeah. And I mean, this kind of pops into my head. If we look at the SEC specifically, What do they brand themselves as, Drake?
It just means more.
It just means more, right? And such a big part of that is because football is basically religion in Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Florida, Texas.
Yeah.
They want the results right now. So Ryder Lyons commits to them. He's going to go on his mission for a year. You're going to have not only impatient fans, but I don't know. I feel like that might cause a little bit of a ruckus. Like if Ryder Lyons commits to Georgia, he goes on his mission for a year. What happens if he decides that he wants to transfer and get back closer to home? Or maybe he just doesn't feel welcome the way that he once was, because there is a little bit more of an emphasis and certainly pressure. If nothing else, there's the pressure of, I got to get on the field right now. I'm a 5-star player in the SEC. I got no excuses. It doesn't matter if I'm number 1 or if I'm number 30 to be inside that top 5. I got to get out there. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's so much more pressure that is assigned to you in the SEC, right, wrong, or indifferent. Whereas you're going to a school in the Big 12 where there's not that kind of pressure. I love that you point out it's win now in the SEC. They have Dan Mullen was fired from Florida with several winning seasons that he had stacked up. He had an SEC title game appearance with Florida. He put together a really good team, and they canned him. You look at Arizona, right? Brett, whatever his name is, I can't remember. Brett Brennan is coming off of a miserable season. U of A fans are already ready to get rid of him, but U of A is not in a rush to. Again, right, wrong, or indifferent. But that's the level of patience that you have in the Big 12 that you don't have in the SEC. That pressure matriculates down to the players. So maybe Ryder Lyons gets way more stressed out by going to a place in the SEC who they were definitely contacting him. Ole Miss was one of the teams that was in the running for him up until the last second. But I feel like you just have a much more homely kind of feel by going to BYU. And that's beyond even the connection to your religion. BYU just does not have the pressure of perform now or we're going to take you out of this town with picket fences kind of thing.
Yep. Development. The Big 12 is by and large about development. And I think all of our universities, even those with deep pockets like Texas Tech or BYU, understand that, respect that, and put that paramount when they recruit. And when they recruit elite level talent, even talent that can't get there tomorrow, but will eventually be there and be one of the best quarterbacks, hopefully, in the country. Richie Bradshaw, what's coming up on Locked On Sun Devils?
Well, we got plenty of recruiting stuff to talk about. Good news. As of this morning, Wednesday morning, we are the number 1 recruiting class in the Big 12. If you listen to this a little later in today, that's probably not the case. So I will let you know what the heck happened to ASU recruiting within like a 12-hour period.
Yep. All of that and more on Locked On Sun Devils. Check out Richie Bradshaw's stuff at Richie. That's RICHIE Brads, BRADZ 36 on Twitter. Find really good tweets. And if you want, whatever that stupid Locked On Sun Devils account is, we'll be quote tweeting plenty of Big 12 stuff. And you can also catch Richie, myself, the entire Big 12 family on the Big 12 squad every Thursday night. This has been, it always will be. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. It's a crossover episode between Locked On Sun Devils and Locked On Dos Gran.